There's a certain thrill to participating in something taboo. Knowing you're doing something that polite society might frown upon can provide quite the rush given the right situation. Watching R-rated movies before you're the appropriate age, staying out to the wee hours of the morning, you know the drill. But what can you do when the cheap thrills of readily available rebellion dry up? You gotta go looking for the banned stuff. The stuff review boards and public safety committees don't want you to see or do. Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we are counting down the top 5 scary illegal horror games. Illegal is an interesting term when applied to these interactive experiences, as some have broken laws in their countries of origin, and others have simply been banned for explicit content. Either way, these games deal with content that a lot of folks deem unfit for consumption. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more perilous playtime. Outrageous, let's begin. Kicking us off at number 5, we have Devotion. When this game was first released, a lot of folks were claiming it was the next big thing in horror. Some compared it to the unfortunately cancelled PT, saying that the atmosphere and exploration elements put it among the scariest out there. Developed by Red Candle Games out of Taiwan, Devotion is a scary, thoughtful game about exploring the home of a family under the power of a religious cult. You play the role of a screenwriter who has fallen on hard times. As his family finds it harder and harder to make ends meet, he turns to the teachings of a cult leader who says he can cure his sick daughter. This leads to a deep obsession with the cult, prompting the father to perform many sickening deeds as the family spirals into darkness. It's an unsettling story made scarier by the atmospheric gameplay. However, none of the actual scary stuff is the reason behind the ban. Devotion was pulled from Steam after players found a political joke mocking Xi Jinping. Infamously known as the Art Asset Incident, this little joke caused immeasurable harm to the developer. There was a hidden poster in the apartment that reads, "Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh moron." If you're aware of Xi Jinping's absolute power in China, you'll understand why this was such a big deal. As Red Candle was based in Taiwan, where they were nominally outside of the reach of China's regulatory bodies, not much could happen to them. But Devotion's Chinese publisher, IndieVent, was not. After a review bombing campaign by Chinese gamers who found the poster, the publisher had their business license revoked for engaging in illegal activities that endanger national security, social, and public interest. So while the game itself is scary, it's not quite as frightening as speaking ill of the paramount leader. Coming in at number 4, Phantasmagoria. This point-and-click adventure game was revolutionary when it first came out. 7 discs, filmed in a multi-million-dollar blue-screen studio with a Hollywood director. It was pretty nuts, at least technically. Full-motion video, live-action actors, the whole 9 yards. We follow Adrian, who moves into a mansion with her ponytailed husband and is haunted by the spirits within. As it turns out, the house was once inhabited by Carno, a serial wife-murdering lunatic. This, of course, leads to a whole bunch of flashbacks in which we discover details about all of the domestic violence. The kills range from being stabbed in the mouth with a trowel and filled with dirt to a full-on head-twisting torture machine. Most of the gameplay wasn't any more offensive than a gory B-movie, but of course, because it was a video game, there had to be hell to pay. Granted, it was on the gory side for a lot of games when it was released. Some folks even called it one of the bloodiest games ever at that point. But the major controversy really boiled down to a scene in which some non-consensual activities took place. For this, major retailer CompUSA refused to stock it, religious organizations and politicians decried it, and Phantasmagoria was even refused classification in Australia. I suppose there aren't many surprises there, to be honest. While it pushed the envelope at the time, I wouldn't say it deserved all the bad press it got. Gory, creepy, and pretty corny too, Phantasmagoria is definitely a relic of its time, but hey, people have got to get mad at something, right? Coming in at number 3, Manhunt 2. The follow-up to Rockstar's controversial Manhunt, this is a game that was doomed to be sewered by uptight and puritanical people the world over. While it is full of brutal violence, most of the public outcry stems from an incident relating to the first game in the duo. In 2004, there was a murder case in which Manhunt was presented as evidence. A 14-year-old boy was beaten to death and the game was blamed. The argument did not hold up in court, but folks who were involved with or following the case seemed to believe that there was a direct correlation with Manhunt and the violent actions of a disturbed teenager. Back to Manhunt 2 though. Right out the gate, this murder simulator received banned and ratings refusals across the board. Germany, Ireland, Italy, Malaysia, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, the UK, all sorts. Even in the land of the free, America, Manhunt 2 claimed an adults only rating from the ESRB. Well deserved too, I suppose, as the game does feature excessive gore and high impact violence. One of the game's key features involves using stealth to perform over-the-top executions on the poor suckers that might get in your way. For this, the British Board of Film Classifications rejected it outright. The board cited an unrelenting focus on brutal slaying, casual sadism, unremitting bleakness, and a constant encouragement of visceral killing. Sounds like a good time all around, but hey, Britain's also got football hooligans to worry about. I can't blame them for trying to keep the violence at a minimum. The ban meant that Manhunt 2 couldn't be legally supplied anywhere in the UK. Truly an illegal horror game. But don't come at me with that Manhunt isn't horror nonsense, alright? It's literally an interactive slasher. Daniel Lamb and Leo Casper, baby. Coming in at number 2, we've got Active Shooter. This game wasn't even able to make it to digital store shelves, and it's no surprise either. In a world where it seems like there's a new mass shooting every couple weeks, creating a video game where you play as the lone gunman probably wasn't the brightest PR decision. Granted, you can choose between playing as a SWAT team member responding to the shooting as well, but you can probably foresee some issues with the concept itself. Once made public, the game was intensely critiqued, especially by those who had been affected by the Parkland shootings. Something like this is insensitive to the students and families, and really seems like a game only meant to shock and horrify. The game itself is nothing special, published by a man who has a long history of misbehavior on the Steam platform. It appears that the person behind Revived Games is well known for being a troll, with a history of customer abuse, publishing copyrighted material, and user review manipulation. In all likelihood, this person was just trying to get this kind of outraged reaction from the public. Their plan worked, but also the game is now permanently off of Steam. And finally at number 1. Assault Day. Yeah, the title isn't really Assault Day. It's a little less politically correct. Investigate at your own risk. This is another instance of a developer making something for the sole purpose of being controversial. Published by indie developer Jake Roberts, it was later revealed that this was apparently an alias for US Air Force official Mikhail Randolph Upjohn. It's a visual novel taking place during a zombie apocalypse. The player controls a menacing serial killer rapist as they make their way through the rapidly deteriorating world. However, survival and teamwork aren't really on the main character's mind. No. In Assault Day, the assault and abuse of women is encouraged to progress the plot. Dialogue and action options are presented, most of which involve the exploitation of female NPCs. Upon hearing about the gameplay elements, people scrambled to have it removed from any and all platforms ahead of its time. Well, it was indeed pulled from digital marketplaces that didn't prevent the game from being downloaded. According to Upjohn, it was too late to ban the game as copies had already been distributed. And of course, nothing ever really disappears from the internet. In the meantime, many organizations are doing their best to prevent further spread of the game. In South Africa, there are online monitors being tasked with constantly checking platforms that could potentially distribute the game in the future. So there you have it, 5 scary illegal horror games. Have you heard of any of these before? A lot of them tend to tiptoe right along the edge of freedom of expression. What do you think about the bans? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more controversial ones from the top 5 scary pictures that should not exist. Dome Does Stuff says, I think he meant the bomb dropped in 1945 and not in peace times in 1949. Yeah, I slipped up here. I don't know what happened. Good call on the correction. Family Over Fraud 72 says, that doesn't look like a purge mask. It looks like a crazy crying girlfriend. Well, I'll be damned, it does. But which is scarier, do you think? Just Some Guy Without a Mustache says, I'm surprised my selfie wasn't included here. It was a close runner-up for sure. Although if you would just give in and grow a mustache, you wouldn't be having this issue at all. Nisha Massey says, Blobfish's photograph, it was the scariest thing I've ever seen. What? I think the blobfish are cute. Or something. And Gujari Vijaya says, I am a lover of photography. I'm glad to hear it. That's all the time we have for today. Before I crash my minivan into another bigger minivan, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more paralyzing petrification. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Either way, these days in South Africa, there are online... I'm gonna sneeze and it's gonna suck. Oh. There we go. In 7 discs, filmed in a multi-million bans and ratings refusals, whoops.